Trump has ordered an Epstein investigation. This is brand new. We're going to go through it because previously they said we didn't have enough evidence. This all got started 2 days ago when House Democrats released 3 emails that seemed to implicate Trump. The GOP responded by releasing 20,000 emails, saying that those 3 emails were cherry-picked and misleading, specifically in relation to Virginia Giuffre, who never accused Trump of wrongdoing. However, in this huge release of emails, there was a lot. And specifically, I should note that Trump was mentioned more than anyone, but remember, it was a mixed bag. So depending on who your news sources are, you may see them focus on one side of it or the other. Some will spend tons of time talking about Jeffrey Epstein, saying he never got a massage, referring to Trump. Others will focus on the fact that Epstein claimed that he was the only one who could take Trump down, implying that he had some kind of compromising information on Trump. I will remind you that these files went way beyond just Trump. Some people like Michael Wolff came off terrible, like they were plotting to blackmail people. They were running PR for Jeffrey Epstein. Others like Bannon seemed to be much closer than we previously knew. This went to the highest halls of power, and we talked about some of the governments that were even involved. But today I just want to focus on everything that led up to now there being an investigation into the Epstein files, because previously the DOJ has said there was no evidence to do this, which is what's really weird about all of this. Remember the flip-flopping that's been going on over and over. I'm going to put a few clips here just to show you how much things have changed over the days, weeks, and months leading up to this.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
There are a lot of people who are knee-deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
A lot of people are wondering, because you said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk, is when can we see them and what's taking so long to release them?
Breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released.
I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever, but I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it.
Overnight, the FBI and Justice Department releasing 11 hours of footage they say helps confirm notorious financier Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in his Manhattan jail cell in 2019. But perhaps the biggest bombshell, investigators say they found no incriminating client list of Epstein's, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties.
That's right. First, it was a Democrat cover-up. Then they reviewed the files. They found Trump's name in a few of them. Then they said it was a Democrat hoax. They said there's nothing to release here. Jeffrey Epstein was a sole trafficker to himself, and they released a memo basically saying there's nothing to see here. They said specifically, we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, and that it did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. And yet now we are investigating people. So what has flip-flopped us yet again? Well, after this email release, the president has been acting really weird. First, he personally called Rep. Lauren Boebert, urging her to withdraw support for a bill releasing the Epstein files, and then several of the top law enforcement officials met to discuss the Epstein files, specifically in the Situation Room, which was covered by a White House correspondent. And I think it's worth hearing him talk about how weird this is for people who aren't in the Washington zeitgeist.
In that same day, she was summoned to a meeting with the Attorney General and the FBI Director. So these are the top law enforcement officials of the whole United States government are sitting in the White House Situation Room, quote, providing a briefing. I'm like, okay, so what does that all tell you? You've got very sensitive information that being briefed here to a member of Congress, presumably, you know, with a security clearance. Honestly, you know, when I see something like that, I'm like, that's just flashing intel, right? So the fact that this happened in the Situation Room really was like a whoa moment for me. Right. Because I'm like, wow. So this goes to classified setting. They don't want her to bring a briefing, or they don't want to bring her phone in. Presumably, she probably didn't have any staff that were allowed in there. This is like clearance to the max.
Yeah. So this wasn't an ordinary reaction. I mean, they were taking it very seriously. And the fallout to all of this was Donald Trump today saying he will be asking AG Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, JP Morgan Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with him. And Bondi immediately accepted, saying, "Thank you, Mr. President. The department will pursue this with urgency and integrity." But notably, all these people are sort of Democrats. So there don't seem to be any Republicans mentioned here, which makes sense given that Trump's initial statement calls it still an Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans. So it seems clear that they're not going to go after their own. Instead, they're going to go after Democrats only, which again is weird because they previously said they did not have evidence to do any of that. They said they didn't have evidence to investigate anyone, Democrat or Republican. And when people didn't buy that and said, well, clearly there's something here and you guys are hiding it, they go, okay, well, we're only going to investigate one side of it, which I don't think is going to appease anyone, especially given that these emails that we just saw crossed the spectrum, once again, as we knew, and heavily involved Trump, despite the fact that some of them were good for him, some of them were bad for him. There's just no basis to just investigate one side of the political spectrum here, and especially given that previously y'all said that there was nothing, there was no evidence. What's the evidence now to justify an investigation? Well, I'll give you one theory, although to be clear, it's impossible to know. Maybe this is just vindictive, but take the context for a second that we are about to have the House order the release of the Epstein files. Well, if the DOJ has an ongoing investigation, suddenly they can say, hey, we can't release all the files to you because there's information here that's part of an ongoing investigation, so we have to hold that back. So it's very worrisome that on the eve of these Epstein files being released by the DOJ, suddenly they have this investigation, which might mean that they can't release them. It's honestly all so corrupt, and all of us are just wanting everyone to be investigated in all of this, or at the minimum, some transparency, which it seems like we're never going to get.